Here, I've started the recording.
Okay. Oh, yo brahmanam vidadhati purvam yo vai vedamscha prahinoti tasmai tam hadevam atmabuddhi prakasham mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya om shanti shanti shanti. गुरुर् ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. Okay, so let me wish all of you a very happy new year once again. I hope the new year started well for all of you. And so this being the first session of the new year, just let me go around, find out if there are any questions that people want to discuss, or should we do something else? I do remember a couple of questions from the last session. Someone wanted to know more about Prakriti and Maya. I don't know if that person is there. Any other question that people want to discuss, or what else? Okay, total silence as usual. Okay, so
So I think Shubhu has joined. Maybe I don't remember if that Prakriti and Maya question was from her. Shubhu, was this question from you?
Sorry, which question?
there was a question in the last session. Someone, I think it was Shwetambari, if I'm right.
Yes, I don't think it was from my side.
Shwetambari Shigne or someone. Yeah. Anyway, so if no one has any questions, I think I've thought of something. We'll go with that. Uh,
Okay, fine.
yeah.
So,
Or if there are questions, I'm happy to open some discussions. Either way, it's up to you. Okay. So no questions. Nobody has any questions. Right. So in that case, I thought we will look into Viveka Chudamani. I had shared the PDF text some 3-4 sessions back. Can you people locate that link and open the text, or have you already downloaded the text? It will be helpful if you have the text in front of you. I'm trying to locate that link. Yeah, so I'll forward that again, so that if you have a challenge scrolling through your history, you can directly get it from here. So yeah, I've shared the link on the WhatsApp. You can download, open whatever you want. So I will be starting from shloka number 254, which is on page number 28 of that PDF. Page number 28. So if at least one or two of you can say you have opened the book, then I'll be good to start.
Yes, sir, I have it open.
Okay, now Shwetambari ji has joined. So, ma'am, were you the one who asked, for a detailed explanation of Maya and Prakriti?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
No.
right. So, since you have joined, I will see if I can do that. Depending on how much time we take, we will then move to Vivek Chudamani after that, if we still have time. So, the word Maya and the word Prakriti are essentially pointing to the same principle or entity. So, if you recollect the very early lectures, session 1, 2, 3, 4, you would know that we first start with matter and consciousness. And we accept two entities. We have the matter and we have the consciousness. And then we analyze what is matter, we analyze what is consciousness, and finally we went through a lot of logical steps, and finally we said, matter is not an independent entity, whereas consciousness is an independent entity, and that is how we arrived at Advaitam. So that's just a big picture view. So in that early discussion, whenever we say matter, that matter, the ultimate form of matter is what we call Prakriti, and it is also called Maya. Okay, so all the material things that you see in the world, the table in front of you, the wall, the cars, and all the metallic objects on all the so-called inert material, they are all one or the other form of materials. Or if you come from a chemistry background, if you remember the periodic table, when we were in school, we had some 105 or 104 elements, and I think today there are 118 or 120. I don't know the latest version of the periodic table, but I think there is more than 115, 116 elements. So you start from hydrogen, helium, beryllium, boron. I forgot the sequence, but yeah, somewhere carbon comes. Then you have the halogens, uh, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and all that. So all those elements, you can say they are all emerging from Maya. Okay, so Maya, Prakriti, there are other words like Pradhanam. Pradhanam is a word that the Sankhyas were using. And then there is also a word called Anumanam. Interestingly, the Sankhyas also use the word Anumanam. Anumanam actually means assumption or inference. But strangely, the Sankhyas were using the word Anumanam to denote Maya and Prakriti. Okay, so again, going back to the very early series of our lecture series, I did talk about how matter evolves. Okay, and I said Prakriti has three gunas, and there is Sattva guna, Rajo guna, Tamo guna, and then the Sattva guna of all the elements, they contribute individually to one sense organs, and coming together, they contribute to the formation of the mind and so on. So I don't want to repeat all that. So everything that you see, touch, taste, feel, all of that is material, all of that is Prakriti, all of that is ultimately coming from Maya. So if I take you to the scientific world, in the scientific world, at least in the Western scientific world, at some point somebody called Dalton said that matter is made of atoms, and so the atomic theory came, and Dalton said atom cannot be divided further, it's the ultimate particle. But then somebody in the early 20th century, I think it was Rutherford or someone, who showed that actually atom consists of enormous amount of empty space, and then there are protons, electrons, and neutrons within the atom. So then the scientific community started talking about an atom with subatomic particles. Then they started, even before that, they were talking about molecules. So they said there is a water molecule, there is a carbon dioxide molecule, there is a sulfuric acid molecule. So along with the atomic theory, the molecules were also recognized. And then the subatomic particles like electrons, protons, and neutrons were discovered. And then there was a split. There was one stream of the physics chemistry people who went along the particle route, and they went on discovering more and more particles, and they kept saying that all the other particles are products of different levels of energy, higher energy level particles, and so on. And when I last read a book on particle physics, the world of physics had something like 128 known particles. And if you go to where is that place? There is an institute in Switzerland called CERN. It's in Zurich or Geneva, one such place. Yeah, CERN. They have what is called a cyclotron, and every year they keep coming up with new particles. So the number 128 is probably breached. They now probably have more than 150 particles. I don't know. And then the other stream that went this way was the quantum theory people. It started with Einstein saying that matter and energy are interconvertible, and energy can change into matter, matter can change to energy, and so on. And then Niels Bohr and other people came, and they had this quantum theory. So the quantum theory people went in a different route. For them, particles didn't matter. They were always talking about how the energy changing to matter, whether electrons are really particles or are they waves. So they went into that trip. But neither the particle theory people nor the quantum theory people have come to any final conclusion about what is matter. Nobody has a clear theory to explain. Some few years back, there was this big excitement about the God particle. There was something called Higgs boson, and they said, we have now discovered Higgs boson, and that's the ultimate particle, which is the root cause of all the other particles. But then a year later or so, somebody disproved that. So nobody agrees today as to what is the ultimate entity from which matter comes. Okay, so that is the status of the scientific ability. But these are all fairly recent developments, the last 200 years. Okay, but our rishis in the Upanishads have already said that matter originates from Prakriti or Maya, and Maya cannot really be understood. That is something they said. They use the word, Shankaracharya in Viveki Chudamani has used the word anirvachaniyam. Anirvachaniyam, or in another place he uses the word anirvachya. Both the words mean that it is something that is not logically establishable. You cannot establish logically what is matter. Okay, and that is, that is the stand the Advaitins take. The Advaitins say that really speaking, there is no such thing called matter. There is no separate thing or entity called matter apart from consciousness. Okay, so even when it comes to consciousness, the current so-called modern scientific theory holds that consciousness is a product of matter. Okay, they say that the brain produces consciousness. Okay, whereas our rishis, our sampradaya, Vedic sampradaya has established long back in the Upanishads that it is the consciousness that is fundamental, and matter actually is some kind of a evolute from consciousness. Matter evolves from consciousness, and that matter, ultimate matter principle that evolves from consciousness is given the word Prakriti, Maya, Pradhanam, Anumanam, and all that. Okay, so this is a relatively brief explanation of Maya. I don't know if this kind of meets your expectation?
Actually, sir, I was thinking, uh, how do I then differentiate between the world that I see around, the
Mm.
world that we experience through our senses,
Mm.
and the world that my consciousness understands, the Chaitanya understands?
Okay, what do you mean by saying the world that your Chaitanya understands? What do you, can you explain that in greater detail?
That is to say, then, sir, the all the teachings that Advaita has till now taught us, that teachings I try to understand through my pure consciousness. That's how I look at it. I don't
No,
know if I'm right or wrong,
no, 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 no.
but
You know, you're trying to explain something, but the language that you are using is not a very accurate language.
okay.
Yeah, so I think this is also something that I covered long back. You probably have to go back to one of the earlier lectures and look where I talked about it. I talked about the theory of knowledge according to Vedanta. The theory of knowledge according to Vedanta. What do I mean by theory of knowledge? It means it is an explanation of a mechanism of how we know things. How do you know what you know? Or what do you mean by knowing something? What exactly is knowledge? So this is being explained in a very systematic way using some simple constructs. Okay, and I actually explained it maybe in the third or fourth lecture, I don't remember, but I'll do it for your benefit now, just so that you have a recollection. So before I go there, uh, how many of you have studied physics at the high school level, college level? How many of you have conducted physics experiments in the lab? Just raise your hands. I hope all of you, most of you would have done physics. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you probably remember the optics lab. You know, optics, where you study mirrors and lenses and all that. You would have done an experiment with the lens in the middle. Yes, ma'am, Kishoriji, what was your question? You raised your hand. That is to say, you did physics, is it?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, fine. So that was not a question. Okay. So you remember that experiment in optics lab where you have a lens in the middle and you have a needle on one side, and then you have another needle on the other side of the lens, and you try to find the focal length of the lens. Okay, so you have three objects there. You have one needle, a lens, and another needle in a line. Okay, now imagine a similar setup, but then there are four entities, not three, but there are four entities. The first entity is the object of your perception. Now let us take the eyes, the object of sight, for simple example. That's easier to understand, but then you can extend it to all other objects. So there is an object that you are seeing. That object is the first entity. Then how do you see that object? You see that object with your eyes. So the next entity in the line is your eye or your sense organ. And your sense organ requires the support of your mind to operate. So behind the eye is your mind. That's the third entity. And then the mind itself operates with the support of consciousness. So without the consciousness, the mind is not able to operate. So consciousness is the fourth entity. So you now have four objects in a straight line. At the back, you have the consciousness. In front of the consciousness is the mind. In front of the mind is your eye or sense organ. And fourth is your object. Okay. Now, what we say is, you experience something, in order for you to experience something, your mind has to travel outward through the sense organ, reach the object that you are trying to experience, cover that object, and acquire the shape of that object. So the mind acquires the shape of that object by actually traveling through the sense organ and reaching that object, covering that object, and then acquiring the shape of that object. And that acquiring the shape of an object we call vritti. Vritti. No, V-R-I-T-T-I, vritti. And that shape or configuration or vritti of the mind is witnessed by the consciousness. So the consciousness can do nothing other than observe what is going on in the mind. The consciousness has no other business. It is always glued to the mind and looking at the mind, and without even a microsecond of pause, the consciousness is always witnessing what is going on in the mind. And it is the mind which goes out through various sense organs and comes in contact with various sense objects and keeps taking various vrittis, which we call thought. And every thought that your mind goes through is witnessed by the consciousness, and that we call perception or knowledge or experience. We use all these words. Okay, now have you understood what I have explained so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so this is exactly how all of us know whatever we know. There is no other way. Okay, it works exactly for you like that, it works for me like that, it works exactly like that for everybody in this whole world. No exceptions. This is the theory of knowledge. There is nothing else. So you keep on having experiences and keep on registering those experiences. Some of them are stored for a long time, which we call good long-term memory, and some of them you forget quickly, so it is forgetfulness. But whether you remember something or forget something, at the time of experiencing, you have actually perceived that object, experienced that object, and it has been witnessed by your consciousness. Okay, now what that means is everybody's experience is different because everybody's mind is different. And this is the example I gave in that 4th or 5th lecture where we talked about this. I said if 10 people go and watch a movie, or if 10 people listen to a particular song, or you go to any event, whatever, the 10 people will come back with 10 different experiences. Nobody will have an exact identical experience as the other person, because even though the object that they all witnessed happens to be the same, the experience within quote is conditioned by the mind that filters that experience. So you will not perceive an object in exactly the same way that another person will perceive. It will be filtered and colored by your likes and dislikes, your tastes and prejudices, and inclinations, and whatever mood you are going through at that time. So many things will corrupt or pollute or whatever you call, mix up with the experience. So everybody's experience will be unique to themselves. So if this is the case, then whatever you mentioned as the world experienced by your consciousness, yeah, that will be the only world you experience. There is no other world you will experience. Do you get that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there is, of course, there is an objective world outside. I'm not denying that there is an objective world at the time of your experience. But how you perceive or experience that object is conditioned by, number one, your sense organs, number two, your mind. You know, if let's say somebody is colorblind, okay, that colorblind person will not recognize all the colors in a particular object, whereas somebody with a very sharp eyesight will observe a lot of nuances in the different shades and colors. So the appreciation that the other person will have will not the appreciation of the color blinded person will not be at the same level as the other normal person. It's a very simple example. Or for instance, somebody has a hearing problem. Some people have this problem that certain frequency sounds they cannot hear. So for instance, there is a commonly known problem where some people cannot hear high frequency sounds. So for them, if you take them to a music concert, they probably will miss some of the high notes. Yeah. So your experience is always unique to you, and that is the only experience that you can have. Yes, ma'am. Subhashini ji, you have raised your hand.
Yes, sir. So if the experience is different, and if the experience of each and every person cannot, even if it is explained and if it is cannot be captured by the other person, then how are we going to explain all these theories? Even if the rishis have this experience, say God experience, anyway, their experience, even though if they are putting it in simpler terms, I won't be able to get it, because when this logic applies, I will not be able to get what they are telling me.
See, they are explaining a certain experience that they had. Whether you will have that experience or not, the first condition is that God that came in front of them should come in front of you. Okay, that's the first condition.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you cannot talk about the same experience. Okay.
Yes, sir. But
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, your response, your counter question.
Because of the raga dvesha that you said, the likes and dislikes. So only if we pass all these layers, there will be one layer where we all come together.
And
until
that one
that
layer is
point,
consciousness. That one layer is consciousness. At that layer,
consciousness.
there are no two people. There is only one consciousness. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Okay, so you're coming to that point. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, ultimately, all objective experiences are bound in time and space. They are finite and therefore mithya.
Right. Okay.
And consciousness is the only truth, the only ultimate truth. That is the ultimate teaching. Yeah. Tell me.
So that what is beyond time and space, so it does not have a fluctuation. So you want to say that only at that level our experience is same, and until we come there, all our experiences are different.
Even there, even there, you cannot use the word experience because you are not objectifying yourself.
Oneness.
You are not objectifying yourself. You only have to own up your consciousness.
Okay.
So that
so
is
maybe
not
oneness.
an experience.
Can I say?
Sorry?
Can I use this word oneness instead?
You can use the word oneness. There's nothing wrong. But you in lot of literature, you have this term Atmanubhava or Atma Anubhava. That Atma Anubhava itself is a very misleading term, because whenever you say Anubhava, it means experiencing something as an object. But your Atma, you can never experience as an object. Okay, I give again some examples. You take the tip of your finger You can touch everything around you with the tip of that finger, but you cannot touch your own tip of finger with your finger.
Yes, sir. That I get. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Similarly, you see everything around you with your eyes, but with your own eyes, you cannot see your own eyes.
Okay.
So,
So, okay.
generalizing, the subject can never objectify itself.
So unless we have these two entities, subject and object, the experience is going to be different.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
Correct.
what you want to convey. So if the subject, the objectified subject is the same, until we get to that point, the experience is different. Am I
No,
right?
the objectified subject is grammatically wrong.
Objectified subject.
Subject
Okay.
can never be
Subjective.
objectified. That's, please remember that. You can never objectify the subject.
Yeah. Then there's only a subject. There's no object there.
Correct. And that is what we say, that is an understanding. So if you say Atma Anubhava is an understanding and owning up of yourself, then the word Atma Anubhava has some validity.
Mhm.
That is the only validity you can have for the word Atma Anubhava. Okay. Now let's
Atma
pause
Anubhava.
this. Let's pause this. You please think
Okay.
about the answers you got. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. Shwetambariji
Right.
raised her hands.
So I was about to ask the same question. When you say that every person has their own experiences, then these experiences they come into the field of mind and Maya.
Hmm.
Then how to understand Chaitanya without mind,
No, you
without
cannot.
Maya?
No, you cannot have a point in time. You cannot have. It is physically impossible to have a point in time when the Chaitanyam and the mind are not together. The only possibility is when you are in deep sleep, or if you manage to go into some kind of a nirvikalpaka samadhi. Okay, these are the two possibilities. But in those two possibilities, what actually happens is, it is the mind that is completely at rest. Okay, please understand the nature or the characteristic of the mind. The mind is a very dynamic entity. It's an extremely dynamic entity. It can change its configuration several hundred or thousand times within a second. Okay, I'll give you a very small practical example as to how it works. Okay, now I'm talking. It is now 35 minutes or so after 8 o'clock. So I've been talking from 5 minutes past 8. For the last about 30 minutes, I've been talking. And when I talk, every sentence has several words. First word, second word, third word, first sentence, second sentence, third sentence. Every one of those words and every one of those sentences is registered in your mind, and it is grasped and understood. And by the time the understanding is over, the next word comes, the next sentence comes, and you don't miss any of that. And I'm not talking slowly. I know I'm delivering maybe a few tens of words every few seconds. No, I'm probably talking 3 to 4 words in a second. So your mind has to be quick and agile to catch every word that I'm talking. And so imagine how quickly your mind has to change from one word to the next, one sentence to the next, and one concept to the next. And it's catching everything all the time. And that is possible because the mind is capable of this dynamism. Let's imagine that your mind is not dynamic. Okay. Then what happens? I say the first word, and then your mind is still grappling with the first word, and I've spoken a few more sentences, and then your mind returns to the next word. Does it ever happen like that? Unless you're absent minded. I'm not talking about an absent minded person. I'm talking about someone who is attentive and very earnestly listening to the conversation. If you are very attentive, you will never miss even one word. So that is the nature of the mind. It is dynamic, it changes, it keeps changing. But what happens in samadhi is that you somehow condition the mind to become very stable and very quiet, and restrict the dynamism that the mind naturally possesses. Okay, so in that state, the mind is still, the mind is still, but the consciousness is still very much there. And what you experience is the blankness of the mind. You don't experience nothingness, you experience the blankness of the mind, and that is the exact blankness of the mind that you would experience in deep sleep also. Okay, so to answer your question, you said, how do I understand the world without my mind? There is no such possibility at all, because your mind is always there. As long as a person is alive, the mind is there. There is no way you can get rid of your mind. So tell me, in the light of this answer, how do you rearrange your understanding? How do you correct your understanding?
Correct in the sense, sir? I've not understood the question.
No. You said that you want to understand the world without the mind. That's what I understood. I mean, did I understand you wrongly?
And no, sir, not the world without my mind, but I wanted to differentiate that there is all around me. When I sense the world, then it comes into my experience, and then that is where the mind comes into play.
Mhm.
And that's how I think is what Maya is. And then further that, I just want to understand when we talk about this knowledge of all of us being one,
Mhm.
and all of us being as god like, or just aham brahmasmi,
Mhm.
that kind of knowledge, where does this knowledge go, and where do I experience this knowledge, or do I just know it and I just accept it the way it is?
You will not experience that knowledge. Let me put it this way. There is no experience in the sense, if you are looking for a Brahman experience, that will never happen. Because that Brahman happens to be pure consciousness, which happens to be your essential nature, my essential nature, the essential nature of everybody in this world. Some people know it, some people don't know it. That's all. Okay, but that Brahman or Atma has to be understood intellectually and owned up. You have to own it up. That's all. And to own it up, you have to first convince yourself that this is logically, intellectually correct. And that is a long process, because you have a lot of day-to-day experiences which seemingly contradict this knowledge. And so you will have plenty of questions. You know, I am supposed to be Brahman, but I'm seeing this, or I'm feeling this, and so on. Yeah. Okay. So
Yes, exactly, sir. That's what the problem is. The dilemma is that I am the Brahman and still I'm experiencing this.
no.
That
You are Brahman, and you will experience the world as
right.
long as you are in this body. That
Okay.
those two facts remain, they coexist. You cannot help it. You
Okay.
know, it's a bit like, I'm saying that all of us are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. Is that something difficult for you to accept?
No, not at all.
Yeah. But in spite of the fact that all of us are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, we do experience a separateness of this body, a separateness from other bodies, and separateness from all the objects. We feel hungry, we feel thirsty, we feel tired, we feel happy, sad, disappointed, whatever. We experience all that, all the while knowing that we are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. Are you not living with uh, a piece of knowledge and an apparently contradicting experience? Is that not similar to what you are pointing?
Yes, yes. But then my question is, so once I know that we all are one, then this knowledge, I have to own it up. When you say I have to own it up, then that process comes automatically, or should I be striving for it and should I be trying to get to it?
Nothing will come automatically. Let me put it this way, nothing except old age, nothing comes automatically. Okay. Yeah. So you have to strive to change your attitude towards everything that you see around in the light of this knowledge, and that is called nididhyasanam. That is the term we use. Nididhyasanam means once you have understood this knowledge, this teaching, and once you have convinced yourself logically and intellectually that this is correct, you then realign all your habits and attitudes and reactions and everything that you do behaviorally, you align it to this knowledge and slowly start transforming yourself. Yeah. So I'll leave you there. I'll go to Shubhuji and I'll come back to you and Subhashini if there are any further follow-up questions. Yeah, Shubhuji, you can talk now.
So can one say that if one practices this and evolves further through nididhyasana, that the individuality is lost and you transcend or transform into this pure consciousness state? Can you say that?
No, that's
Or
not
can-
that's not a right expectation. Okay, even after you have gone through a long nididhyasanam process, you will still experience the body which has a finite dimension. You will still feel hungry, you will still feel thirsty, you will still feel tired and you will want to go to sleep. You will still probably feel happiness when you experience some happy situation. You may even still feel pain when something bad happens, but you will be able to recover faster. Okay, so again, if you remember long back, we talked about FIR, frequency, intensity, and recovery. I don't know how many of you remember. So I said that whenever something adverse happens and you tend to flare up, you can probably note it down and say I flared up, or I lost my cool, or I lost my temper X times a day or X times a week and so on, and that is frequency. So as you practice more and more nididhyasanam, the frequency will keep dropping. Previously you were probably flaring up every few minutes, and after some time it will come down to a few times a day, and after some more time it may come down to few times a week, and so on and so on. After that you will kind of recover as quickly as possible, and that recovery itself, recovery, no, not recovery, intensity, frequency, intensity and recovery. Okay, so frequency will come down. The intensity is how do you react. Are you physically getting violent in that reaction? That is very high intensity. Are you verbally abusing and shouting and all that? That is a lesser intensity. Or are you simply mentally disturbed? That is the least intensity. So you would also find that as the nididhyasanam progresses, the intensity will come down. Earlier you probably were throwing things around when you got upset. Later maybe you were just hurling abuses at somebody. All that will stop, and later you will only feel some kind of a disturbance at a mental level. You will not express it verbally or physically. That is the least intensity. And even that least intensity disturbance will, the frequency will keep reducing, hopefully. Yeah. And then recovery. So earlier, if something very majorly upsets you, you probably took a few hours or a few days to come out of it. Hopefully you never went into deep depression for several weeks. But once the nididhyasanam has progressed to a good extent, you will probably recover in a matter of few minutes or maximum 1 hour. Yeah, hopefully. Again, it all depends on which aspect of your personality you apply this nididhyasanam technique in a very systematic way. Because all of us have a personality that has practically infinite number of dimensions. and we may be very controlled in some dimensions, but we may not be very controlled in some other dimensions. So we have to identify which areas are our weak spots and try to work on them. Yeah, this is how Nididhyasanam, at least in theory, is supposed to work. Okay, now I think I've kind of covered. Yeah, I think Rahul raised his hand. Yes, sir, Rahulji.
Ji, sir. My question is, right now you mentioned that when somebody expresses it verbally, it's high, as in it's a high impact, and when somebody who doesn't express it is a low impact. Let's say, and here you also talked about the duration. So let's say a person expresses it immediately, aloud, but his duration is very small as compared to other person. So which one is better? A person who keeps it in his mind and for a few days or few hours?
Both are not good. Okay, both are not good. Expressing it out is in itself not very pleasant, because you're going to hurt somebody. You're going to hurt somebody, and that's not good. And if you are carrying it for a long time, it is going to hurt you. So the question is, what is better? Hurting others is better, or hurting yourself is better? Both are not good. So that person has to work on both and make sure that even the intensity is reduced and the recovery time is improved, short recovery. But that is ideal. Again, it's possible for the same person to be in one pattern in one aspect and in another pattern in another aspect. So it all varies from individual to individual. There is no standard answer to it. But ideally, everybody should try to reduce the FIR in all of their dimensions as much as possible. That's the ideal condition. But ideal is something that practically doesn't exist. So it's all long term.
Okay, you got it. Thanks.
What we call in mathematics asymptotic. The asymptote is supposed to meet the curve, hyperbola at infinity. So it's something like that. Okay.
Thanks.
So yeah, thank you. My pleasure. So Shvetambari ji, Subhashini ma'am, Subbuji, have I kind of addressed your doubts, questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
anybody else having questions? No? Okay. So let's quickly go to Vivek Chudamani. I hope by now most of you would have the text from the link I shared. So 254 on page 28. Okay. I don't know if everybody can identify the Sanskrit numbering, and if all of you can read Devanagari, but the shloka is Jati Niti Kula Gotra Duragam Nama Rupa Guna Dosha Varjitam Desha Kala Vishayati Vartiyat Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani. That is the shloka. I'll read it once again. Jati Niti Kula Gotra Duragam Nama Rupa Guna Dosha Varjitam Desha Kala Vishayati Vartiyat Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani. So this last line, Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani, will be repeated as the fourth line for almost 10 shlokas. Okay, nearly 10 shlokas, you will see the same fourth line. So I will explain that first. Yeah, it goes on till 263, which is 10 shlokas. Okay, so the first three lines describe Brahman in a particular way. So the first three lines are sort of description of Brahman, and the fourth line says, understand that you are that Brahman. So Brahma Tattvam Asi, it is a slight paraphrasing of Tat Tvam Asi. Tat Tvam Asi is a Mahavakyam that comes in Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter, what is famously called Shashtadhyaya. Shashtadhyaya literally means 6th chapter. Okay, there, this word Tattvamasi, Tvetaketo, that comes almost 10, 11 times. And that Tat Tvam Asi is called a Mahavakyam. Okay, so what is a Mahavakyam? A Mahavakyam is a statement that comes in many Upanishads, and it's a sentence that teaches the essential oneness of Paramatma and Jivatma. Okay, so Mahavakyam is a sentence occurring in the Upanishads that has as its message the teaching that the Paramatma and the Jivatma are essentially one and the same. Okay, so in some Upanishads, the Mahavakyam will be different. So in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the Mahavakyam is Aham Brahmasmi. So Aham Brahmasmi is a Mahavakyam. Then in another Upanishad called what is that? Aitareya Upanishad. Aitareya Upanishad from Rigveda, the Mahavakyam is Prajnanam Brahma. So that Prajnanam Brahma is a Mahavakyam in Aitareya Upanishad. Then in Mandukya Upanishad, the Mahavakyam is what is that Mahavakyam in Mandukya? Omitye tadaksharamedagam sarvam tasyopavyakhyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyaditi sarvam onkara eva yachanyat kalatidam tadapyonkara eva sarvagam hetad brahma ayamatma brahma. So that word ayam atma brahma is a Mahavakyam from Mandukya. And in Chandogya, the Mahavakyam is Tat Tvam Asi, Tat Tvam Asi. Okay. So Brahma Tat Tvam Asi Bhavayatmani. So the word Tattvamasi itself has two etymological analysis or interpretations. So Tattvam, if you treat it as a single word, Tattvam, the word Tat is the main word and the Tvam is a suffix. So Tattvam means thatness. The suffix Tvam gets the meaning of ness. Okay, so for instance, if I say sthulam and if I say sthulatvam, so sthulam means gross, sthulatvam means grossness. So similarly, tat means that, tattvam means the nature of that. That is one word, tattvam. Or tat and tvam, you treat them as two separate words. That means, tat means that, tvam means you. So tat tvam asi means that you are. Whereas in this shloka, the word tattvam points to the Mahavakyam where tat and tvam are two different words. But in the shloka itself, it is used as a single word, tattvam, tattvamasi, Brahma tattvamasi. So that tattvam has to be added to Brahma. Brahma tattvam asi. So that Brahman you are. Your true nature is that of that Brahman. That's what it means. Brahma tattvamasi means your true nature is that of Brahman. Bhavaya atmani. Bhavaya means here to understand. Understand, know that, and atmani means really mean in your mind. Here the word atma doesn't mean consciousness. The word atma in this shloka, atmani, means in your mind. So all our knowledge, all our understandings are actually in our mind only. You cannot have any other knowledge. Like Swami Dayananda Saraswati used to say there is no such thing called nasal knowledge, okay, or there is no such thing called knee, KNEE, knee knowledge, or there is no such thing called elbow knowledge. All knowledge is in the mind only. So Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani means understand in your intellect that your true nature is nothing but that of Brahman. That is the fourth line. Now, what is the first three lines? What do they say? Jati, Niti, Kula, Gotra, Duragam. The Duragam has to be added to everything. Jati Duragam, Niti Duragam, Kula Duragam, Gotra Duragam. So Duragam has to go with every one of those words. And what is Duragam? Duragam means far removed. Far removed or totally unconnected. Okay, so Jati Duragam means Jati is lineage by birth. And today, all the caste issues that we see in India are all based on lineage by birth. And this sloka says, Jati Duragam, the real Atma, the real essence of a person, is completely removed from the physical birth, Jati. Similarly, Niti. Niti normally stands for justice, but here you have to understand Niti as some kind of a tradition or habitual practices. Okay, and so Niti, you can say behavioral, all those changes, all those differences you see in behaviors and all that. Niti, the way you move around in society, all that is Niti. Okay, so Atma really has no such thing called behavior or norm, behavioral norms, because Atma actually has nothing to do with behavior. Behavior is all at the body and mental level, and Atma has nothing to do with all that. Then Kula and Jati are practically the same. So Kula means, you may be talking about, I come from a royal family, I come from a family of rich people and all that. So that pride about the family, that is Kula. And Gotra again is lineage. So Jati, Kula, Gotra, they're all very closely connected. You really can't separate them from one another that clearly. So Gotra is again, you can say Kula, Jati, same. So all these are not, relevant when it comes to Atma, Chaitanyam. Similarly, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Dosha, Varjitam. See, the word Varjitam means bereft of or devoid of. So Nama, Rupa. So consciousness or Chaitanyam actually has no name. You call it consciousness only when you have to differentiate it from matter. But otherwise, when you accept Advaitam and you accept that there is no second entity in the world other than consciousness, even the word consciousness becomes irrelevant, even the word Advaitam becomes irrelevant. Okay, when do you say Advaitam? You say Advaitam or one without a second only when there is a second entity to talk about. But the teaching of Advaitam is that there is actually no second entity at all, which enjoys the same level of reality as consciousness. So if that is accepted, even the word Advaitam is irrelevant. Okay, so Nama and Rupa is name and form, and consciousness really has no name and form. All the name and form belong to body or matter. Okay, so Nama Rupa Varjitam, Nama Varjitam, Rupa Varjitam, Guna Varjitam, Dosha Varjitam. So Guna is a positive quality, Dosha is a negative quality. So the Atma, the Chaitanyam, the consciousness, ultimately Brahman, does not have positive qualities also, does not have negative qualities also. So it is devoid of all qualities. Then Desha Kala Vishayati Vartiyate. Now this is something I have told in several contexts. Desha Kala Vishaya Vishaya Paricheda Rahitaha. That's the word I use. Paricheda means limitation. So Brahman or consciousness is not limited by a space or time or Vishaya. So Desha means it is not limited in space. You have it everywhere. In fact, all what you call space exists in Brahman. Similarly, what you call time also exists in Brahman. So Brahman is beyond time and space. Desha, Deshativarti, Kalativarti, Vishaya Ativarti. And what did I explain for Vishayativarti? I said that it is not limited in one type of an object. Let's say if you say Brahman is white, then that means Brahman is not green, Brahman is not blue, Brahman is not red, and so on. But Brahman is everything and Brahman is nothing. So you cannot limit Brahman by saying that it is big or small or gross or subtle. You cannot use any of those adjectives. So Vishayativarti really means Visheshana Ativarti. It is beyond all adjectives. You cannot assign any adjective to Brahman. That is what it means. So that Brahman, such a Brahman, you are. Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani. That is the 254th shloka. Okay. So we covered just one shloka, and hopefully we will cover the remaining 9 in the following sessions. But until now, whatever we saw in the shloka, if there are any points which are not clear, we can have a short discussion. No? Okay. Great. So I suppose there is no question from anyone. Then we'll conclude today's session here. Yeah, it's 5 minutes past 9. We will chant the closing shlokas and close the session. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarvepi Sukhinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. Thank you so much.